Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of She-Hulk. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, this episode felt very much like kind of like a rom-com episode. It feels like part of like certain aspects of this episode feel like maybe like a shortened journey for a character in a rom-com. But I mean, I guess like there is that kind of romantic comedy element throughout the through line of this sitcom that the show is, or just straight up not. Would it be? I think it should be considered like a sitcom, regardless. Either way, Jen and the whole Josh thing, which was super cute, getting like those date situations going on. You're like, oh, that's super cute. Her at work texting him. It was really nice, and then like. I think at like one moment she was kind of like, oh, she was on the other side of the door, being almost like, wait, was he kind of expecting there to be more? Like, was it? And then when she opened the door, he was gone, but he texted her again. So it was like everything seemed fine, and they finally did their thing. Not making love because I guess that's the gross way of putting it, but they slept together. I think that's such an interesting distinction. Like, making love makes it sound nasty and gross. Like, yeah, we slept together. Because I think saying making love probably like pigeonholes it to like, oh, like kind of makes it something more than what it was. But it was still something nice, and she was happy about it. But then it's like she's in that situation like, hasn't texted me back, and it's like, cool, like, you know, it's 12 hours, like you don't need to like worry about it. It's like, cool. Then like all Saturday she's staring at her phone. You're like, oh Jen, no. It's like she can't like. I mean. None of her dates have ever worked out, and she even talks about it. It's like this felt like everyone else. Like she went on the only date she went on was she went on one as Jen, that didn't work out. Then she went on a couple as She-Hulk. 3 of the 4 didn't work out, but 1 did. But then that turned out not to work out because it's like, oh, you were Jen afterwards, so. And then you had to parade said dates in the court, you know, kind of, which was a bit embarrassing. But now you find someone who's like, oh, who likes you for you. It's like, oh man, everything's great. There were some people being like, I don't trust this Josh guy. It's like, it seems a little weird. It just seems a little like, you know, like home dude from the dude that she met as She-Hulk that she ended up sleeping with. That guy to me seemed like he was like the most suspicious one because he seemed like he was the dude saying all the right things. And I felt like Josh was genuine, and it's like, no, I should have actually flipped that. Like the guy, I guess, I mean, he's like, right, I know what I like, and it's like, I like She-Hulk. And Jen's not my type, you know? And it's like, yeah, you know, so it sucks, but it is what it is. But, and so, like, Josh, I looked at as more genuine. I wasn't as suspicious of him like other people were, but everyone had the right to be. Because now it's like, cool, it's Sunday, and it's like, cool, no text. It's like, I love the parole officers. Like, yo, I need to go up to a Mills. I need you to kind of go with me because I'd rather be with a Hulk or whatever. I even love when they eventually do get there. The guy's like, yeah, like, you know, next time stay away from the fence so I don't have to come to this scary place. It's like, what? Because, I mean, not like I'm saying that this place is scary or anything like that. Like, he was legitimately understandable. It's like, well, you are the abomination. You've caused some mass destruction and stuff. I'm like, before Banner became this, I mean, Banner has the benefit of being a celebrity. Granted, he did, like, do a lot of mass destruction of a city during Age of Ultron, but yeah, he's become a celebrity where it's like, oh, the Hulk isn't so bad, but it's like, you're still the abomination. You were literally just got out of prison, so it's like understandable. You know, it isn't just like, oh, I'm visiting some regular felon. I'm visiting a supervillain, you know? So he was kind of scared, and but then like we get into the shenanigan field, but very therapeutic, like whole thing that was going on here. I also appreciate, I want to say it's Tierra Whack. I want to say the song's Peppers and Onions was playing while Jim was searching for servers. I was like, oh my god, I love that song. I play that song on repeat, dude. I highly recommend if you've never heard the full song, go listen to the full song. It's a really catchy song. But I was so excited when the beat came in and like the little whistling at the beginning. I was like, oh my god, I recognize it. I was like, yeah, Tierra Whack, Peppers and Onions. Like I'm fairly certain that's the title, Peppers and Onions. I could be mistaken, but either way, I was like, oh man, that's super dope. But then like the guy who's Matador-esque, but not an actual Matador, and then men born love him being like, oh, it's kind of an experiment thing. It's a whole long story. I'm like, I love that we are just casually like filling in the blanks of this universe, being like, yeah, some people exist in it that like would never get time in like the big screen. Like once again, Mr. Immortal last episode. It's like, dude, I like that you are just sprinkling in stuff. Like this show might have done them. I mean, I'm not well versed in comics, but I feel like probably everyone in this episode is probably someone legitimately from the comics. They're probably like very small characters, but like I said, even like Mr. Immortal last episode, I'm like, that's so crazy to me. Because I feel like this show is probably doing the most to like feel out, like, you know, make the MCU feel even more alive, because it's like, yeah, there's just like people all over the place. Are they people that popped up during a blip? Have they been here the entire time, even before that? You know, man, I mean, who knows how long Man-Bull's been Man-Bull. The Matador dude, it's kind of like, yeah, like he's like, I'm not a Matador. People think just because, you know, I speak I'm Spanish, and that I kind of dress like this, but Man-Bull's like, yeah, but I'm sorry, but you kind of do have like the Matador aesthetic going on and everything. And it's like, yeah, he's like, well, I did do a little Matadoring when I was younger. I even love at the end, it's got like, oh, Matadoring, JV, and Man-Bull's like, wait, you did? It's just cause it's like, they have as Blonsky puts it, like you have they have like a little bit of a codependent relationship, but Jin initially wanted nothing to do with like, oh, because it's a retreat and it's like about like people relaxing and unwinding. She wanted nothing to do with it until like she got involved with the circle group accidentally, because one of the wrecking crew is there, which makes you wonder, what about the rest of the wrecking crew? I wonder, it could be a fake name, jumping ahead a little bit, but if Josh was a part of the wrecking crew, I figured Home Dude would know, but maybe he wouldn't, because maybe they don't know each other's names. Because there was at least one or two we didn't actually get to see their faces. So that was kind of like a big conversation of like the dude that she went on a date with that was like, oh, what a specimen. She's like, you call me a specimen? He's like, yeah, in a good way. That guy, he could be one of the wrecking crew, the one, because like I said, there was at least one or two that was like in a mask or whatever. So when the guy first popped up and Jim was like, oh my God, it's this guy. I was like, who is he again? It completely slipped my mind. I mean, to be fair, it's been like, that was the end of episode 3, right? And so like, she's like, right, did they do it previously on that? No, forget it. Do it previously on this guy? And it's like, oh, he's one of the wrecking crew guys. He's the guy with the crowbar and stuff. And Jin attacks him and they're like, whoa. You need to sit in the calming chair. Ooh, she in trouble. I'm like, I love that. And she has to sit there. And I think it does speak volumes. And in that moment, she didn't bother turning back into Jin. She was sitting there as She-Hulk. And they're like, all right, like, let's figure out what this is all about. It's like, well, the guy tried to, like, him and his gang kind of dropped me. He's like, yeah, I take accountability. I'm sorry. And they're like, she's like, oh, no, it's all fine. Oh, he's sorry. It's like, ooh, sarcasm. Kind of not the way to handle this. So, which I just love them really getting to the nitty gritty of it, you know? And it's like, wow. That's why I'm on, because like some people are like, a lot of people are theorizing like, all right, this was set up because Blonsky is back into the MCU, that maybe he'd be part of the Thunderbolts, because maybe we haven't seen the full roster that got revealed at D23, that there might be some hidden secrets to it, which I could see that. Even if it's not, I'm fine with it. I know people have their issues with the lineup, but either way, people would want Abomination on it. It's like, the question is, being who he is now, because there was still that moment of like, I don't know if he's genuine or not, and it seems like he legitimately is genuine, like he is trying to help people. I think it's like, right, he has reformed, so he's trying to reform other people, but putting him on a squad like the Thunderbolts would be interesting, considering his perspective, especially like all the egos that would end up clashing on that team with the current roster being what it is. There's like so much like back and forth between, you could see so many of those egos clashing, and it'd be interesting to have Emil kind of balance that out, especially if there ended up being a Zemo. But that's also a question of, well, maybe Zemo is part of it, we just don't know it, or maybe Zemo's the main antagonist, we don't know it. Either way, so putting all that aside, they really got Jin to like open up, because they're like, right, what is that? Well, it's like, what'd you text him? It's like, oh, are you okay? They're like, ugh. She's like, what? And they're like, I don't know. It kind of makes you kind of seem thirsty, and it's like, thirsty. She's like, you look thirsty or desperate or whatever. And he was like, oh, she did not just call me thirsty. But when they really got to the heart of it for her, it's just like, right. She's like, do you ever have that pretty friend who's pretty athletic, that everyone gets everyone's attention? She's like, well, I can be that person. whether it's like my boss, whether it's guys, just people in general, like all they pay attention to is She-Hulk, and it's like it never feels like, because she's like, even my dates is like, no one paid attention to me as Jen. And it's like, there's some guys that it's like, yeah, legitimately would not be with me if it wasn't for the She-Hulk thing. It's like, if it wasn't for this, like, would some of the people pay attention? I mean, she wouldn't even have the job she currently has if it wasn't for her being She-Hulk. So it is that thing of like, yeah, that's all people want from me. And it's just like, it is sad. And I think it's a through line that, yes, it really hit its stride in episode 5, and obviously it's a through line in episode 6, but it's been a through line the entire time. It's been a through line for a while now. That has just been that thing of like, right, she thought She-Hulk, she's like, I'm not She-Hulk, She-Hulk is something that happened to me, and she's come to terms with She-Hulk, but now it is a thing of, yeah, but I feel so meekish in comparison, because, and people talk about it, like, if you look at her body language, like, as She-Hulk, she's powerful, she's confident. Jen, not as much. She's very self-conscious, and I was like, that makes you really connect with the character, especially me. I have no confidence in myself, so, like, when I see that, which, you know, you're just like, and then there's also, like, the real world part of your brain that's like, that's impossible, it's Tatiana Maslany, there's no way, no, like, it's like, no, like, you know, but it's, you know, just focusing on the TV show itself. But it's like, yeah, Jen is fun. She's quirky, you know, that, you know, you just feel like it's sad that no one else can see her for who she is. That all they see is like, oh, you're just the other side of She-Hulk. I mean, hell, even the guy being like, oh, you're being, Emil Blonsky's lawyer. It's like, yeah, like, could you like green up? And she's like, get my green suit out. Like, he's like, yeah, whatever you call it. She's like, hulking out. He's like, yeah, could you do that? You know, so it's like, even now, I was like, oh, you only wanted me here because you needed a Hulk on your side. It's like, even, you know, it's like, right, not that, like, I'm Emil's lawyer and I could potentially talk him down out of whatever's going on. It's like, no. You're his, you know, and so it's like, right, maybe now you could, you know, you're in a safe space surrounded by us. You could be Jen. You don't even have to be She-Hulk anymore. And I love that the entire group is like, you know what we're going to do? We should go kill Josh. Yeah, let's go. And the Matador dude pulls out his sword and lightning comes out of it. It's like, what did I tell you about doing that whole thing? It's like, sorry. And he sits down. But it's like, yeah, getting Jen to like let down her guard and, you know, be Jen in front of them instead of just She-Hulk, which is beautiful and therapeutic. And for Jen, it was like, oh, it actually works. It actually feels good. This was all actually worth it in the end. I also love the whole porcupine thing, because it was like a thing for him. It was like, oh, getting his suit off, and he ends up taking off. They're like, oh my god, it reeks. It's like, how about you keep that suit on until we get it washed? It's like, okay, yeah. Also, I love the vampire dude. They're like, yeah, he thinks he's a vampire, which are like, I mean, we keep like subtly putting in the vampire stuff. It's low key, and now this, it's like we're subtly doing it. Timing is interesting too. Obviously, it's unintentional, but it's like, yeah, recently, Blade lost, like they're finding a new director for Blade, so it's like the timing is just super interesting with the vampire conversation. Was not planned at all, just ended up interestingly enough, just timing worked out like that. But I love him be like, yeah, Jen's pretty damn great and tasty. But oh, damn, I lost the thread there. Can somebody help me out? I even love that it was like, oh, like Matador and Bull were so like, it's like, oh, do you mind switching seats? And it's like, oh, are you happy what you did? And Jim was kind of like, yeah, I actually am. So, but it's like, yeah, she's like, I'm hurting for some yurtin, and she gets into the yurtin. It's like, yeah, and there's a lot she gained from this. They were like, all right, delete his number. Delete it. And she did it. It's like, yeah! It made me like legitimately cheer, because I'm like, I hope it is. Oh, what was the whole thing of like, they were talking about how desperate it made her sound, even more so when she was like, hey, just getting back, want to make you sure you're okay. They're like, oh, why'd you do that? Because she was like, actually, that wasn't the previous thing. She was like, yeah, that wasn't the last thing I texted him. I was like, oh, Jen, please don't. She only texted him once afterwards. That's good, because it easily could have been a situation of like, oh, you could have ended up sending multiple messages. One was bad enough that you're like, oh, dude. But like, legitimately, I felt bad for her. I'm so curious to see what they, like, because of this whole thing. I'm like, oh, it doesn't seem like it's a fraud. It seems like it is legit. And I'm so curious to see what Emil's situation looks like going forward. Like his little like band of like misfits that he's helping right now. I'm curious to see what their future might be. You probably won't ever see them in a movie, but if She-Hulk does get like a season 2, like you can see like this little bit, like little squad that, you know, that you know, she made some friends and connected with some people in this episode, and I just think that's beautiful, you know. And it helped Jen grow and just kind of accept, like, no, like, Jen is great too. I need to spend more time focusing on Jen, pay her more attention, and forget about Josh. If Josh ain't gonna like keep focus on Jen, and then Jen needs to focus on Jen. And I love that ending. Like I said, it felt very like, almost like, let's say, like that rom-com element of just, it felt like, like, this is almost like, hey, I'm a, you know, self-discovery and finding out, you know, learning to love yourself, you know. But then we get the reveal at the end where Josh, which super effed up and creepy, the fact is, it's like, cool, you're copying all the stuff off her phone, and then you're like sending a picture of her kind of like in a vulnerable state, but it's like Hulk King. So, which immediately I was like, this isn't going to like tie into like the Hulkling or anything like that. I mean, do correct me if I'm wrong, isn't Hulkling like part Skrull or something? Maybe I'm completely wrong about that. I remember Hulkling isn't like a full Hulk. There are a Hulk in something else. I don't know. I want to say a Skrull, but I could be wrong. I don't know if this is like going to be like them kind of setting up a Hulkling situation. But like, it's just the fact is, it's Hulk King. And so I was like, at first I was like, oh, like when he was taking that picture, I didn't know if that was going to be a thing of, yeah, I had sex with like She-Hulk or what he's going to blast that online. But I'm assuming he's part of Intelligentsia, or just he's a tool. But the fact is he like copied her phone makes me think like, oh no, it's got to be like, he's got to be part of Intelligentsia maybe to get close to her. So we'll see what ends up happening there. Once again, and whether or not that's tied to, once again, what's his face name? Was his name Todd? Why am I thinking Todd? The dude, once again, specimen dude from the dates. I'm wondering, because he's also, once again, he also happens to be a client for the law firm she also works for. And it's like, right, that is like a super powered thing. So you're like, maybe there's some correlation there. Like, he must have superpowers or be connected in some regard to that. But I am very, very interested to see where all this ends up taking us. Part of me is immediately like, oh, people are going to be pissed again because still no Daredevil on. It's like, apparently people were super pissed last episode because there was no Daredevil. It's like, this is going to piss people off even more. I kind of find, at this point, like, I'm fine with it. I'm like, oh, Daredevil shows up when Daredevil does. I don't care. I'm enjoying the show along the way. But a part of me is just kind of like, oh man, I'm so curious to see. I kind of avoid a lot of discourse about this show. Like, some people I listen to just because most people are just like, oh, people who are in, yeah, you might have your criticisms, but like most people are, at least the people I kind of like, you know, get like listen to reviews from and stuff like that, are just enjoying it. And that's like, yeah, the other side of the internet, I'm kind of like, I'm just avoiding that side of the internet like the plague. I'm like, I just have no interest of like all. It's like, a lot of people hate watch this, and I'm like, I have no interest in that. So I'm like, yeah, just people like, yeah, we might have your criticism, but most people are still enjoying it that I'm watching. Like, so I'm like, yeah, that, you know, I leaned into direction, like, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So whatever they decide, whatever direction they're taking the show, I'm excited. Sadly, we only have like 2 episodes left, so I am hoping, fingers crossed, this is going to be like because everything else seems like it could be a mini series. There's some stuff that's still up in the air. Like, obviously we know we're getting season 2 of Loki. There's been some inklings about a season 2 of Miss Marvel, like after the Marvels, or even the whole, whether or not there's going to be a season 2 of the Moon Knight or not. We know there's a season 2 and eventually a season 3 of What If. So I'd like it if we were able to get more of these Disney Plus shows to be like more than one season, especially this one being like the sitcom element. Like, her being implemented in the movies, I feel like there's a lot of charm and a lot of what makes this show would kind of get lost in a movie. So I would want the show to I want it to continue. Like, I want it to be like a multi-season show, like not just like a 2 season. If they wanted to, and if they felt comfortable enough, like, I'd want it to go for a couple seasons, because I, you know, loved it. Like, because it's so different. It's like, once again, it's the MCU's first full-blown like comedy sitcom that I would love them to be able to like continue that. But yeah, either way, like I said, I'm excited to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.